Gentlemen, we've we've had a lot of news coming out in the last 48 hours, and so that's what we're going to talk about today. Originally today I had planned on doing like, hey, we'll do a second topic as a transition stuff because there'd be a lot of transition stuff, and then we'll do like a China or a Russia, or we'll do a Ukraine, or we'll do a Yemen or something along these lines for the main topic, and then we'll have some odds and ends. But as I started putting the notes together today, I had like literally 9 things to talk about with the transition. And today's transition announcements were pretty freaking huge. So it will dominate the show. We've broken it up into the national security team and DOGE. For the memes, right?
Scott, before you go any further, I can't believe you. The one day we actually have an excuse for being late and homosexual, and you're not even going to give it to him. All right.
I know. I mean, we were busy watching the Canadian goose step.
Oh my God. I mean, in fairness, I was distracted to the point of forgetting that we had a show to start. But we were sitting there watching. You know what? It's not fair that we don't share it with.
That was my thought exactly.
Gentlemen,
hold on, though. Let me give a warning. A trigger warning. If you are a United States Marine, what you are about to say is going to just throw you off. You're going to be angry all day.
You prepare for your temples to throb and the veins are going to start popping out. But here we go.
This will break you under the heading of checking in on the Canadian military. Guys.
Siri, what is marching?
Can you not even Sergeant Major right there was the only one. He was like, he's just doing his thing, and he looked good. He was literally the only one.
Not even form ranks. Can we start there?
I know. Oh my God. Oh. Don't get me started with the whole turban deal and everything. The dress turban.
But what do you expect? What do you expect from a country that puts geese or ducks on their money? But you know what? I had that same discussion about the turban, where there was that U.S. Marine who was allowed to wear a turban.
Yeah.
Everyone was like, oh, but look, it looks really cool and blah, blah, blah. No, I don't care. So it's silly.
Yeah, I'm wondering how we're going to see some of these beard and weird and new kind of standards shake out with the defense team we're seeing come out. We've got like our good buddy Squishy Hunter up here was so nice to here we go. We have an E4 about to assume VP and a lower field as SecDef. No backfill. I think
no blackpilling allowed.
Blackpilling allowed. Yeah, exactly. So guys,
we're about to have an E4 assume the role of vice president.
A Marine E4, which if I remember correctly, that's a Lance Corporal, right?
No, that's a full-blown corporal.
Negative. That's a full corporal. It is the E4 Mafia. It's E4 not quite as good as the Lance Corporal Underground.
Correct.
It's pretty darn good.
All right, guys. Yeah, like I said, we've got a good show for you today. We're really good. I mean, I really think there's a lot of interesting things that came out between DOGE and the senior leader review board, and you've got SecDef and the rumbling. Now, we got the Sec State announcement in there too, but I don't know that I've seen an official Trump release on that. So it makes me wonder if that's copium at some level.
Some words may have never been said.
What do you say?
Some of our fans appointed Don and I to the senior leader review board, and then asked who else we should have. And I said that Clay Martin needs to be on there. I said one more, but I think Ron should be on there.
We're going to get into it in depth later, But I will say that one of the things that piqued my interest in a very positive way was then they said not just former senior leaders, but former senior NCOs as well. So we'll have some. I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't see some of the folks that you'd call military influencers that have some pretty impeccable military careers. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see some of that in there as well, just
Agreed.
because those guys can get a lot of traction. I think it's going to be important. Having a large social media audience and having an impeccable professional record. Those things going together are going to be huge multipliers.
Look, Scott. There are a couple words that got said that make my dick hard as iron, and I have to highlight them. We are going to have combat experience, senior leadership focused on combat effectiveness. I can't even. Do you have any idea how long it's been?
Well, we've got some clips. Pete just did Pete. We're calling him Pete like he's our buddy, but he'll be signing some folks' checks in the near future. We've got Pete who did a long form interview with Sean. What's his name again? Sean Ryan the other day. So I have not had a chance to sit down and listen to that yet. But that will definitely be on my to-do list here in the near future. I'm sure that, he's only going to expand on the things from that interview as we go forward. I've seen several clips and, it's just so refreshing for people that aren't afraid. It's kind of like Donald Trump, right? When Donald Trump became a politician, he was saying all this stuff that it was kind of shocking, but it was really refreshing because ultimately it was all the things that everybody wants to say that nobody can say, right? No politician will ever say this. Well, as we've seen Donald Trump, his influence continue to hold, he's got this group of people around him that are kind of the same way, right? They're, and some of those people are a little untested, like Vivek comes to mind. Joe, we were really skeptical of him, but I'll be honest with you.
Are.
Well,
okay.
Right. I am less skeptical now than I was previously, but it's just one of those kind of things.
I'm not, because he hasn't actually done anything.
Right.
He said a lot of things.
I get that. He has been very consistent since in his messaging. So maybe he's wearing me down,
So so when you see appointments like Kristi Noem, which was really a disappointment, and then when you see the fact that Tulsi's probably going to get some sort of an appointment, it does make me worry. But I do think that the appointment of Hegseth is him having regrets. Hegseth was on the short list to be Veteran Affairs Secretary or Director of Veterans Affairs, whatever the head of that is. And I think Trump really kicked himself for his pick over Hegseth. So we will see. We will see.
Well, we'll go into some details on that. Hey, Mexican Ironman for $9.99 says Sean Ryan appearance was fire. Was thinking about CFC the entire time I was watching. Yeah, it's just one of those kind of things. Some of the things that he said, he correctly places blame, I think, on what started the Ukraine war. He didn't go as far as to say the U.S. had a big hand in actually starting the war, which is one of the things that I've said.
He didn't mention the color revolution, that's for sure.
Yeah, but he absolutely said the right thing in that, hey, listen, Russia has a point of view, and Russia has some valid reasons, rationale as to why they are, and he kind of said it's a war to get our shit back, right? Which is exactly kind of what we said all along, right, Joe? I mean, anybody who thought that bringing NATO right up to the border of Russia and trying to bring countries that are former Russian, essentially states into or Soviet states into the NATO alliance, If you didn't think that was going to trigger Russia, then you were crazy.
I mean, if only there was a historical example directly across the Red Sea from Ukraine where exactly that happened, right? So
yeah. Lost Core 23 for $10 over on Rumble says, Gooding CFC. The boy continues to grow. The future is bright. Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, let me just temper that. You all know I have to be the Debbie Downer on this, but the federal government remains the federal government this morning, and it's going to be the federal government on January 21st. And think back to Donald Trump's first presidency. They literally fought him every step of the way. And the biggest
Republicans
example,
fought him every step of the way.
let me go back. The federal government, not just the Republicans, both sides, fought him every step of the way. In fact, if you need a reminder, he literally ordered the Defense Department to withdraw from Syria. Are they still in Syria?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So while I'm as excited as the rest of you, you need to temper that a little bit with the fact that I think that the first Trump presidency proved that the president doesn't really run the country. The Joe Biden presidency should have solidified that for you, because Joe Biden isn't running the country. So,
well,
anyway.
to that end, there was an interesting article. I'm going to look for it. But
has anyone seen Victoria Nuland lately? I just need to know if she's been in Washington, D.C., because I've heard it said that if this woman appears in your country, you're about to have a civil war. So I'm just curious as to her whereabouts today.
Yeah.
Does the
so there is
amount of time she spent here in the past count? Because we fucked.
So check. I'm not going to get into this right now. We can talk about it later. But check this story from the Atlantic that came out.
Oh, not that one.
Yeah. We're not going to get into this one. This is not an odds and ends, but there really is a deep state.
Yeah, no shit.
Well, no shit. Right? And so they're like, oh, well, it's not what you think. What it is it's this group of professionals at lower levels that really care, and that and because they care about you, they're willing to go against some of these crazy.
So that's kind of how the left always works, right? No, this is a right-wing conspiracy. Oh, well, wait, no, it's actually real, but it's a good thing.
Here's
and then they do stuff.
Yeah, listen to this. I'm just going to read this one paragraph and then we'll move on. The phrase "the deep state" might trigger images of tinfoil hats. After all, Trump has spent much of his past 8 years falsely claiming that Democratic bureaucrats are unfairly persecuting him. But operating within the federal health agencies is an actual deep state, albeit much more benign and rational than what Trump has talked about. And he might not be he might not be able to easily tear it down. Yeah, you think? I mean, and it goes in to talk about these are the people that kept hydrochloroquine and vaccines and all this kind of stuff away from people when they were proved not to be scientifically,
And yet hydrochloroquine has been proven to be 100% effective.
Same with your horse paste and all this kind of stuff. Shocking. Anyway, so that
is the horse paste.
Anyway, that's another story for another time. But I found that to be very interesting, and so yeah. So we will talk about that at a later date. Because absolutely there is a. I'm sorry, I just came across something on my timeline. All right, this is going in. This is going to the show, but not now. All right, guys, let's jump
into under control.
I know sometimes something is just so funny. These memes are absolute fire that have been coming across. By the way, speaking of fire memes, I just want to.
Can I put out a?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of fire memes, I just want to do a shout out to all the folks who jumped in. Stormy made a CFC fan DM group over on X, and I just want to say, it's been awesome watching that over the past, 48 hours or so. And so it's if you're not in there, hit up Stormy, or maybe I think some of the other DMs can, or some of the other mods can get you into the DM group. Yeah, Stormy's in the chat right now. She might be able to help you out, or somebody else. I know that other people were adding people. I don't know who could add on there. So it's been a really fun first 48 hours for that. So kudos to Stormy for creating that. All right. I'm sorry, Joe. Do you have anything? Otherwise, I'm going to get started.
Yeah, I just wanted to say a couple quick things in the beginning. One, I want to give sort of a teaser pre-announcement. Watch for a really good deal on a Forward Observer annual membership around Black Friday. We started a little bit early. It's going to be a significant discount if you buy an annual thing with some extra perks and benefits. So something there, and then watch for some council members to kind of rotate through his out front show. So more to come on that. But on the other thing is headed down to Missouri to teach class this weekend. Looking forward to hanging out with some more like-minded folks. And more importantly, I'm going to make it into a Buc-ee's today. So good things happening all the way around.
Look at you just bucking it up.
I'm buying you something at Buc-ee's today.
Hey,
because
man,
it wasn't good enough for you when I had the Buc-ee's patch. But now that Tulsi Gabbard had one on her boobs, you want a Buc-ee's patch. But
I honestly,
I'm gonna take care of you,
Joe. I honestly thought that was like something that's somebody made that as just a kind of a
actually the Buc-ee with the nods one is a made one. The Buc-ee's one that you can actually get at the store is just subdued colors Buc-ee.
That's awesome. See, I actually would like that better because that's a little more kind of on the DL. All right, let's jump into it.
Hold on. Before we move on, let it be said, our Arctic brethren hath taken the beaver nugget sacrament.
Uh-oh. I don't know if we should be scared of that or not. All right.
Oh, other thing. I forgot when I mentioned patches. I want to thank the members of the Cherokee Nation who have sent me and Joel Gaines a certain patch. You know who you are. You know what the patch is, and we are quite honored by this. So thank you.
Very cool. I had an idea for a new patch today, Watcher. I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah? All right.
Well, once you get off the farm, we can get
Let's
back
talk,
to
baby. Yeah. We can do it before I get off the farm. Yeah, we're good.
All right. Let's jump right into it, shall we? So this first story is relating to not our border problems, but other countries' border problems. Because, let's be honest, this is a problem everywhere in the civilized world. People who don't have it want what you have, right? And they're willing to come to your country and squat in it in order to take it. These judges need to go. Rome court defies Italian government again on migrant transfers to Albania. And so essentially what happened is Giorgia Meloni has come up with an idea of ways to kind of get some of these immigrants out of her country and send them to Albania. But yet these European courts of justice are basically taking the wind out of her sails. Let's see. Referral to the European Court of Justice on the Italian government's ability to declare some countries safe for the return of illegal migrants could see the Italy-Albania offshore processing deal delayed until next summer.
So this is an unelected bureaucracy at its finest.
Oh yeah.
You have an elected government trying to enact the people's will, and then you have an unelected multinational body telling them, no, you can't do that. That's not democracy, just in case you were wondering.
For all the people who were wondering what we were talking about when we said when you basically join a nation, a larger supernumerary nation state like the EU, you give up your sovereignty. You become sovereign to somebody else. In this case, it's the EU and specifically this European Court of Justice. Judges in the Italian capital on Monday ordered the return of 7 migrants detained at a processing center in Albania and questioned the extent to which the Italian government had the power to declare certain countries of origin safe territories for repatriation. Several migrants originating from Egypt, Bangladesh were intercepted by the Italian Navy and transferred to a migration center in an Albanian port under the recent protocol between Rome and Tirana. However, the initial decision by the Rome court ruled in favor of their immediate return to Italy, citing the recent European Court of Justice decision questioning safety. So essentially what it is, it's that this Rome court, who has the ability to be sovereign over its own territory, has given way to the decisions of this European Court of Justice. So if you say, oh, but Scott, there are these judges in Rome that are saying it's okay. No, these judges in Rome are bowing to the higher court's authority, and it's a loss of sovereignty for the Italians. Yeah, it says here in a tweet that they posted, that Remix News posted, Meloni's 670 million euro migrant center in Albania is already closed for business. All 16 migrants sent to the center will already be shipped to Italy. Left-wing judges from Rome killed the whole project in a new ruling. 3,000 migrants were supposed to be sent to this facility
you got to be careful, because if you do that, then the Italians will come up with a true Italian solution, which doesn't go so well for the migrants.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The Italians are rather, Joe, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I mean, you do have Italians that are generally good. And they're right there with Italian nationalism. They believe in this kind of idea of, kind of national populist ideas. But ultimately, every time that's come forward, even with Meloni, right? We've seen, like, we've had a tongue-in-cheek, bromance with her, ever since she kind of came on the scene. But ultimately, she's been stopped and stymied at many turns, and she hasn't been able to get past these roadblocks, because she's not willing to take that exit from the EU step.
I'm gonna correct you. It was not tongue-in-cheek, my man.
No, I mean, I didn't say you. I said we. I'm just, you can take it as far as you want, brother. I don't want to get you in trouble.
Elon Musk still has a butt kicking coming from me. I'm just throwing that out.
No, I remember. He was kind of putting the moves on her, if I remember correctly. And she wasn't. She seemed like she, was starstruck at the time, so it made sense, I guess.
I was like, "Hey, man, remember that time you asked for my help in training you how to fight?" Yeah. Think that all the way through, bro. He was like, "Oh, my bad."
Hey, my bad. Don't you have some doging to do back in Washington? All right. Anyway, I just thought this was interesting. This highlights this idea of immigrants are a problem, not just on our southwest border, but through Canada, and then with Europe through all kinds of.
But on Italy's southwest border too.
Yeah, well, all of Europe's southwest border, France, Italy, Greece, all have huge problems with these migrants. Turkey has kind of figured out that they could just let them through, just kind of get them in, but get them out, right? So Turkey doesn't let them hang out. Turkey is a little based in that way, I would say.
Well, let me say what should happen here. Italy needs to rearm, and when the judges come to say, "Oh, did you return those 6 migrants?" say, "Fuck you, no."
I don't disagree with you, but at the same time, where are they? Where are they? They need to do it. They need to step up and do that.
Agreed.
And they haven't done that yet. All right. Let's move on to our next story here. I thought this was interesting, Joe. I mean, this is not the first time this has happened, but it's starting to become a thing, and I think it's kind of an interesting display of capability on the part of the Ukrainians. Ukrainian drones struck the Caspian Sea, It's a headache for the Kremlin. I think that's putting it lightly. Let's see here. A Ukrainian kamikaze drone hit a Russian warship in the Caspian Sea for the first time, according to Ukraine's Defense Intelligence Service. At least 2 targets were damaged. These are likely missile patrol boats, the Tatarstan and Dagestan, moored at the Russian naval base of Kaspersky. How do you say that, Joe? Kaspersky? I think that's how you say it. Not Pisk. Kaspersky. Anyway, this is about 1,500 kilometers from the border of Ukraine. Ukrainian intelligence chief said in September that Ukrainian drones are capable of hitting enemy targets at distances of up to 1,800 kilometers. But the events on November 6th clearly still came as a surprise to Russian security forces. Despite the head of Dagestan's call not to post photos or video of the incidents, channels from Dagestan and across Russia are full of videos of the drone's flight and impact from different angles. The incident is also being hotly discussed on local social media. During the attempt to shoot down the drone, the Russian military spared no bullets. As a result, some hit homes of the Caspian people. Bloggers complained that despite the allocation of 550 million rubles of state funds in the Safe City system, neither the Emergency Situations Ministry nor the Civil Defense System worked. I mean, guys, this is, Ukraine is just taken. I mean, I don't blame Ukraine, right? If I were a Ukrainian partisan, right, I would absolutely be cheering this, because the idea is like, listen, you attacked us and we're able to hit you back, and you're not safe even 1,500 kilometers
Well, yeah, I mean,
away.
look. I mean, I'll stand with Ukraine on this point. Russia sure thought it was funny when they had their deep strikes heading into Kiev. They sure thought it was hilarious and patriotic and something to be supported when they were, slamming Kiev with artillery and rocket fire and then sending in advanced teams on helicopters. Everybody was all about it. Where's that energy now, huh?
Yeah. Well, no, you're right. You're right. I mean, the other side of it is like, does Ukraine know what it potentially is getting itself in for? Right. I feel like every time you kind of,
yeah,
you take it a little further, it is an escalation with Russia, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, with a country that has much more staying power, and I think that's ultimately where people need to be cautious. Is long after Ukraine is no longer able to continue the fight, Russia will continue to be able to grind you to dust.
Yeah, I mean, Joe, what's your kind of take on this? Did we lose Joe? Maybe
for just a moment. Joe's getting gas, so it'll take him a second.
Okay, all right, yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah, I didn't even see his post there. Yeah, so anyway, I thought this was just both indicative of what is capable of what a little ingenuity will allow you to do, and so that's one of the things that I think Ukrainians are showing us with not a whole lot of assets. You can have some pretty deep impacts. We've talked about the kind of democratization of warfare with these low cost drones. Watcher. I mean, this is all stuff that theoretically you could do with on almost like a high end, prosumer kind of level.
Yeah, absolutely. A citizen with a vendetta could absolutely do some major damage. Joe, what do you think about the point that while Ukraine may be able to do this, they might want to think twice about who has the more staying power and who's going to be motivated to grind them to dust afterwards?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is a really bad idea on their part. I know why they did it. Right? Ukraine didn't do this to actually strike Russia and score a hit on a ship that couldn't possibly do any damage because it was the Caspian Sea. They did this to try and convince Donald Trump to keep the money flowing. See, look, we can actually hurt them. But this is going to backfire in a big way. Every time they do some sort of a deep strike like this, they get literally pounded for the next 4 days by the Iskander missiles that NATO keeps telling you Russia doesn't have anymore, and Kinzhals, right? So I would expect a really bad week for the Ukrainians. But again, this is all marketing. It's them trying to convince the Western powers that there's still a chance. It's that guy who goes for the girl who's already dumped him and has a new boyfriend, but there's still a chance.
Yeah,
right?
The thing about this, Joe, that I kind of think is, I don't know, it may be diminishing returns on the part of Ukraine is, they hit let's say a patrol boat in the Caspian Sea, which really has no, it costs Russia money, right? But ultimately it has no effect on the greater war. Then Russia does a bombardment of, say, electrical infrastructure buildings, across the region that is very critical to the war effort of Ukraine, right? So it's like you're trading, you're sending a message, which, okay, it shows a capability, but ultimately there's no material return for it. And then the response potentially could absolutely, kill hundreds and maybe thousands of civilians going into.
Yeah. In fact, it costs you way more. Yeah,
right.
Exactly right. Yeah, they've got a lot of gas infrastructure, and by that I mean like natural gas and propane, LPG infrastructure that they're about to be relying on very, very heavily because winters are pretty harsh there. So we'll see how that goes. Not really a good time to be striking deep.
Yeah, Militant Roots got it. Fab 3000s incoming. Yep, those are, by the way, the kind of the GPS guided glide bombs that Russia's been using. I don't know that they're GPS guided. They may just be dumb glide bombs, but they've been pretty effective.
They might be. Let me check real quick.
GLONASS,
also Shaheeds. Lots and lots and lots of Shaheeds.
Well, you know what I mean. I wasn't saying that they've got.
I agree.
They have lesser GPS on it.
I agree with you, but like Doritos, here they come. It has a GPS, or more accurate, has a GLONASS, but still.
Yeah. Anyway, so I just thought this was interesting and kind of another step into crazy time with the Russians against Ukraine. All right, so let's jump into our last odds and ends here real quick because just to prove me wrong, Yemen comes out and says, no, we aren't going to stop fighting. In fact, we're going to hit the U.S. Navy in 2 separate seas at the same time. So as this is a statement of the Yemeni armed forces regarding the implementation of 2 military operations, the first of which targeted American aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln in the Abraham. I love how they use it's his last name. The Lincoln in the Arabian Sea with a number of cruise missiles and drones, and the other targeted 2 American destroyers in the Red Sea with a number of ballistic missiles and drones. Joe, what's your kind of take on this? This is pretty ambitious, especially to coordinate something like this.
Well, first of all, thinking you're going to score a hit on a United States carrier is pretty silly for the sand people. So, but it is a symbolic gesture that they're able to reach out and do it. And I'll be honest, the private sector has done far more good for shipping in the area than Operation Prosperity Guardian. And this just kind of drives that point home that the U.S. Navy in that region is actually on the defensive. Now, I know we launched a serious strike with F-35 Charlies, but again, is that really a serious strike if that's what we were using? But I don't know. I think that it shows that the Yemenis want to be defiant in the face of Donald Trump, but they also want to hedge their bets, right? They didn't sink a large commercial vessel. Instead, they went for a combatant ship, which actually is, I have a little more respect for them for that than I do for going against unarmed shipping.
I am seeing that apparently my mic sounds pretty deep fried. Hopefully this fixes it. Let me know out there if that's any better.
You were coming in pretty heavy and strong. But you know what? While we're on the topic of the U.S. Navy, I want to mention something that that caused sort of a firestorm on Twitter because everyone wanted to shout at me about naming conventions. We violated our own naming conventions before, but the fact that you named a destroyer after John Basilone, I get why, but that's a disservice. You should have named an amphibious ship after him, since he was like the OG of amphibious ops, right? Won the Medal of Honor during one, and then was killed and won the Silver Star on a second one, or Navy Cross, on the second one. So you should have named. Yeah, you should have named you should have named an entire class of amphibs the Basilone. But hey, what do I know? And when people say, "Yeah, we have naming conventions," yeah, there's a Gabby Giffords out there, which violates every naming convention we've ever had.
Yeah, so, yeah, you're exactly right.
We've also apparently got a ship now named after child molester, which is just the best.
Yeah. Well, it's the United States Navy, so.
Stormy, well, don't even. I was gonna say, don't even go there, man. Stormy says in the chat, "Did Joe just tell Watcher he's coming in hot and heavy?"
It's not the first time. It is not the first time.
All right.
Well, speaking of coming in hot and heavy, you know what? I might have accidentally. Was that our third out and end, or did I skip one?
No, that was the third out and end. So, real quick before we jump into the main topics today, Joe, I know you're on the road. Give us a clue on what's going on with tactical-wisdom.com these days.
Sure. I put up an article just the other day over there. I've got another one in the works right now that I actually I used my voice recorder while I was driving to pretty much write. I just got to convert it onto the site. It's going to be about you're doing your seasonal changeover. It's now time to switch from your summer gear to your winter gear, and some things to check on and some changes to make in your basic loadout. So watch for that to come up. We're headed out right now for what I think is the last class of the year for a community security class down in Missouri. Got a big group of guys coming into that, so that's going to be a good time. I wanted to actually play a video today from an event that happened in Montana last week, but I don't have the video yet, so we'll have to save that for Monday. But just so everyone knows, Big Fork Harvest Foods, kind of a big grocery up in the area, and anyone who's been to Camp Ponderosa has been to Big Fork Harvest Foods at some point. They donated several pallets of food for Thanksgiving to the Northwest Montana Veterans Food Pantry, and in partnership with a motorcycle group there called the Montana Legends. And it was a bunch of turkeys, a bunch of hams, all the fixings for Thanksgiving dinner, everything you want. They donated it all, and we got it all to the food pantry. And there's some video there of Al and Linda and I accepting this donation and getting it on the way, and good stuff. I just want everyone to be thinking about that, and we'll drop some links next week for folks to make donations to the Northwest Montana Veterans Food Pantry. They do a lot of great work. They take care of a lot of people. And I want to give a shout out to the Montana game wardens, the Fish and Wildlife Department. In the last 2 weeks, me and Yogi have processed 2 elk that they have donated that have been confiscated from illegal hunts. And an elk goes a long way to feeding hungry people. The last one, I think we netted somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 pounds of meat to give out to hungry veterans. So pretty cool stuff. And Scott, you'll appreciate this because you've ridden in my car before, but I had an entire quartered elk in my car 2 days ago. So it fit, but barely.
Right on.
Anyway.
That's funny, brother. Those things are freaking big, man.
They are, but more importantly, I have this sheet of paper from the Fish and Wildlife Police that says I'm able to transport a deer a dead deer or elk in my car without a license. So who knows what that might get used for?
All right.
Certainly hope you've got a license for that.
I don't want you to incriminate yourself there, Joe. So, all right. Okay, so let's jump into the. I mean, this is, oh my God, this is
yeah, I was gonna say, going back to a previous transition. Speaking of coming in hot and heavy,
well. I mean, and then of course, and then Stormy goes down the whole Brokeback Mountain thing too. Stormy, come on. Yes, absolutely. This is I just when I saw that picture that's in this article, I couldn't help. That was like, I was like, watch. This is the picture we need of for our thumbnail today. Because the thing that I know that just from all the things that I've listened to and learned about this guy within the last, what is it? Only been 12 hours or so since they really announced it. He's a dude. He's a guy like us, right? I mean, he is not afraid to it kind of goes back to that thing I was saying about Trump. Trump has kind of flipped the script on how you communicate your ideas in this new world of social media and, getting the direct truth to as many people as possible. Right. And so he's saying things that no other SecDef has already said, right? And for all the people out there that says, well, he doesn't have any senior military leadership experience, or he doesn't have any of this, or he doesn't have any of that. Well, I'll be honest with you. I mean, you can take some of these former 4-stars that have been SecDefs in recent, and both in the Biden and the Trump administration, and you could say, hey, I don't know that they were that good a SecDef either, I mean, I'm sure there's people are going to like that kind of leader because it gives them somebody to look up to or whatever. But
listen, and the SecDef role isn't what people think it is, right? So General James Mattis, one of the greatest war fighters we've ever had, terrible as SecDef, right? So it's a different role. And trust me, ask any E4 in the United States Marine Corps what the Secretary of Defense ought to do, and they know it. So it might have been a good pick from that regard.
Yeah, so Steve is right. It is a legitimate concern because managing an organization as big as the DoD is a huge job. So here's the thing, right? The great news he's going to have hundreds of very, very competent people working for him. And, as long as he kind of focuses on the wave tops and doesn't get too down in the weeds with this type of organizational culture kind of job, I think he'll be okay. Now, here's the other thing. I think there's going to be a big effort to kind of thin out the top of the pyramid in a lot of these places, that's that deep state presence, right? And so it's kind of interesting to see, how he'll do that. Now, for those people who say he doesn't have any qualifications, all right, he is a Army officer. I think he got to the rank of 04, so that's major. He spent most of his time in the National Guard and Reserves. He has 2 Bronze Stars. He's been an infantry platoon leader. I'll be honest with you. If you're an infantry platoon leader, that's good enough for me, right? But he's deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan, and he also did a tour at Gitmo. He's got. Let's be honest. You guys know I don't have a whole lot of use for Ivy League education, but I do recognize that you can't, for the most part, you can't be a dummy and work your way into the Ivy League, right? I mean, I know what my daughter just recently went to with my daughter had some aspirations to get into the Ivy League, and she couldn't do it.
Well, did she consider maybe just darkening her skin a little bit? Because that statement is absolutely untrue as long as you're the correct demographic.
I don't think that applies for Pete Hegseth. So.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I also don't see this guy is not, he is not a Donald Trump Jr. either. He doesn't come from a big money background or huge. So he may be a legacy. I don't know. I mean, because if you're a legacy, it is a little easier to get in. But ultimately, he went to these places, and not only did he go undergraduate, but he went to Harvard for his graduate work. And then after, I mean, as a pretty young guy, he started forming, he either was in leadership positions of or formed kind of veterans advocacy organizations, right? I mean, that's not something like this guy's 6 years younger than me and has got a way deeper resume for this kind of stuff. And so you can't take that away from him. To say that he can't do the job without letting him honestly have a crack at it, I think is short-sighted. And here's the other thing. So for me, the thing that stands between him, the most kind of the biggest barrier standing between him and this job is Senate confirmation. Now, something we're going to talk about later in the show, the Senate, the 3 people up for the Senate leader job, majority leader job, have all said that they would endorse the recess appointment so that Trump can kind of get his agenda rolling. And so even if he isn't fully confirmed by the Senate, he could be assigned to the gig for a year as a recess appointment. So anyway, this is a really interesting thing. And
I've been a Hegseth fan for probably almost 10 years now. Always been a solid guy. I really like what he's tried to do for veterans and all of that. And I do think Trump really missed the boat when he didn't appoint him to the VA the first time. But we will see how it goes. Meanwhile, on the other side of the fence, Malcolm Nance is literally crying in his beer because he thought he was going to be the national security advisor under Kamala Harris, which I find laughable.
Oh my God! I mean, what would we have done to deserve that? That's what I want to know.
It's
here's a clip from that Sean Ryan interview with Pete here.
There's a chance to course correct it, but it would take a new Trump administration going after it really hard.
How would they correct it?
Well, first of all, you got to fire. You got to fire the chairman of Joint Chiefs, and you got to fire this. I mean, obviously, you're going to bring in a new Secretary of Defense, but any general that was involved, general, admiral, whatever that was involved in any of the DEI woke shit, has got to go. Either you're in for war fighting, and that's it. And that's the only litmus test we care about. You got to get DEI and CRT out of military academies, so you're not training young officers to be baptized in this type of thinking. And then, whatever the standards, whatever the combat standards were, say, in, I don't know, 1995, let's just make those the standards. And as far as recruiting, to hire the guy that, did Top Gun Maverick and create some real ads that motivate people to want to serve. And there's lots of other ways in which you could identify who gets promoted and what, but there's an ethos change. I mean, there's a reason people don't want to serve, because they don't trust that their senior leaders are going to have their best interest in mind in combat. I know there were mistakes made on our tours all over the place, but I, at least for the most part, had a sense that my senior leaders were committed to the completion of the mission for the right reasons. And maybe there were strategic differences and all that other stuff, and it wasn't always perfect, but that trust is broken, and you have to reestablish that trust by putting in no-nonsense warfighters in those positions who aren't going to cater to the socially correct garbage.
Yeah, I mean, see, that's all the correct thing to say. From me, like, that's exactly what I want to hear from the next SecDef.
Well, and he's right, because when you think about it, when we try to enforce some of that stuff in areas that were under our control, not part of the U.S., but when we say, hey, look, as we're occupying Afghanistan, you need to teach LGBTQ rights in your schools, that heightened conflict, it didn't lower it. And that's an excellent point that he makes. And at the SecDef level, for everyone who's talking about his combat experience, not as a senior leader, the SecDef isn't out here running campaigns. The generals are. The SecDef is out here setting bigger policy, which I think is fine for him. That's a pretty good role.
The title of his book is War on Warriors. And I think that's an interesting idea because that really does get to this whole idea that there's so much of this woke garbage has come in front of or distracted us from actually war fighting. You know, Joe. I mean, these
rename the Department of War like it used to be. Stop calling them SecDef. Call them Secretary of War. Yeah.
One of the things that we've seen recently, I think, is a great example of this lack of just killer focus. Right? Is the implementation of the JLOT system on the Gaza coast? Right?
Yeah, that was a terrible idea and a terrible execution.
Oh, and as long as we're on the topic, I hope you guys saw that the one of the sailors who was severely injured during that died last week.
Yeah, I had heard something like that. That's terrible, man.
Well, as the SecDef, your role would be to step up and say, this is not the application for this, and this is actually a horrible idea, and we shouldn't do it, rather than nodding your head and going along with
it. Watch or anything like you're coming at this. You're at that lowest level, that junior NCO level, right? From that point of view, What does somebody with your experience say when you see a guy like this? He's not. He may not be senior to me, but he would definitely be senior to you. Is this the kind of guy the rank and file want to see?
Oh, certainly. No offense to either of the people in the room, because I feel that you're some of the few that this doesn't apply to. But the common wisdom among the lower enlisted for a very long time has been if the individual in question has achieved a higher rank than staff sergeant, they got there solely and exclusively by stepping on the faces of those below them and fucking everyone over possible. Do not trust them ever. The calcified, fossilized remains of our leadership program in the Marine or in the military need to be utterly burned of all dead wood. And it's going to be like, if we're being honest about it, if you got down to the people who are actually good leaders and actually good war fighters, it'd be a very small room. You could probably all fit them into a single office at the Pentagon.
Yeah. Joe, what's your take on that? I mean, I think you probably agree. You'd agree with that.
I'd agree with that. And present company accepted, anyone above the rank of major is generally not in touch with the company grade persona and the trials and tribulations of the private through, say, E6, E7 life. Second lieutenants, first lieutenants, captains, and most majors are still pretty in touch with that. Yeah. But once you start getting up there beyond that into senior leader land, that's where the great idea fairy comes in and all this fantasy land stuff that doesn't really hold true in real life. So I'm pretty happy with this appointment. And sometimes a junior leader, a major field grade, that's not a bad level. That might have a more realistic approach than someone who's been, say, a colonel for the last 16 years and was bucking for brigadier general and never got it. I don't know. I think it's a refreshing perspective, actually.
That brings up a great point. I want to know, does anybody know, has Millie been seen flying to China with a lot of baggage recently?
I know him and a former senior enlisted guy, who will probably travel together. And that former senior enlisted guy was almost the vice president of the United States. So,
well, hey, real quick, before we move on from this appointment, let me read the statement that Donald Trump actually released about this. I'm honored to announce that I have nominated Pete Hegseth to serve in my cabinet as the Secretary of Defense. Pete has spent his entire life as a warrior for the troops and for the country. Pete is a tough, smart, and a true believer in America first. With Pete at the helm, America's enemies are on notice. Our military will be great again, and America will never back down. Pete is a graduate of Princeton University and has a graduate degree from Harvard University. He is an Army combat veteran who did tours in Guantanamo Bay, Iraq, and Afghanistan. For his actions on the battlefield, he was decorated with 2 Bronze Stars, as well as the Combat Infantryman's Badge. I got one of those. Actually, I got one of those Bronze Stars, too. Pete has been a host on Fox News for 8 years, where he used the platform to fight for our military and veterans. Pete's recent book, The War on Warriors, spent 9 weeks on the New York Times bestseller list, including 2 weeks at #1. The book reveals the left-wing betrayal of our warriors and how we must return our military to a meritocracy, lethality, accountability, and excellence. Pete has also led 2 veterans advocacy organizations leading the fight for our warriors and our great veterans. Nobody fights harder for the troops, and Pete will be a courageous and patriotic champion of our peace through strength policy. Here's the thing, guys. For me, right, he had, including actual sec defs and acting sec defs, I believe Trump had 5 different people in the 4 years he was there. I think that he feels both betrayed and just beaten down by these kind of the intelligentsia, if you will, the highly qualified leaders that he has had previously in that job. And I think for him, I think a lot of he probably read this guy's book. He was a big supporter of Pete's even going back to 2016, but a lot of the veterans organizations said, "Oh, we don't like that guy because he calls us out because he thinks outside the box, right? Because he wants to take away money from the veterans ecosphere that we've already established. He wants to create, these private, he wants to get money to private organizations to take care of vets, and that's not good, right? And so between the book, between Pete's loyalty to the America First policies that Donald Trump, I think he's looking for somebody who's just not going to fight him and that when he says, "Hey, I want you to do this over there," that he actually trusts that he'll take that message to Garcia and go into that organization and do everything he can. Now, he may fail. He may not have the chops. It may be such a huge nebulous organization with these Byzantine codas that won't allow anything to get done. And if that's the case, then hopefully he can call in the Doge and the Doge can whittle it down a little bit for him. But ultimately, I think him trusting Pete is the biggest part of this.
Well, I'm going to misquote it terribly, but there was an old saying by one of the Greek philosophers that said that if you subjugate your warriors to your academics, you will eventually be subjugated, right?
Yeah.
And it's absolutely the truth. And the reason why the veterans organizations were not a Hegseth fan first time around was because exactly what you said. He was actually impacting their grift and would have, and they didn't like that idea. They like their grift. They like the money for managing things rather than solving things. If you solve things, then the money ends. And he was like, "No, you're putting the money in the wrong places, and instead of putting it into research programs, put them into direct benefits." And I think he was actually right on that.
Yeah, Diaticus got it right here. He said he wanted to help vets instead of helping the VA.
That's accurate. Look, I'm not gonna lie. I have some procedures that the VA is contractually obligated to do that for the last 4 years, mysteriously, they just keep delaying that decision over and over and over again. So I personally am very excited to see how things shake out.
Well, and now being so directly involved in a veterans charity and a veterans service organization, learning how much the VA gets in the way of serving veterans and the amount of red tape and just ridiculousness they throw in the face of actually serving veterans really, really sucks. I mean, for example, they require if a veteran needs help, they want you to gather all this information on the veteran. Veterans don't want you gathering information on them. That's part of the problem. That's why a lot of them end up homeless. They don't want to give up all that freedom and all that information and all that. So it's really it really is a tough road to go down.
Well, I mean, we could talk about this for. Bottom line is, I think Pete's going to do a good job. I think he's good for the job. I think it's something the military needs right now in this point in time, and so I support it. Any final thoughts, guys?
Desperately, but the military is not. I was going to say, but the military is not the only thing that needs reforming, though.
Well, our next thing that we're going to talk about here is another agency that needs deep reform. Now, I'm less in touch.
That was Watcher performing a beautiful segue. So,
well, we've got enough. We all have our moments when it comes to segues, and we've got a lot of practice. Warrior for Truth and Honesty. Trump names John Radcliffe as the CIA director. Now, outside of knowing that he's been a supporter of Trump for quite a while. And he was in the original administration, I think, as the National Intelligence Director of National Intelligence.
No, he was the director of the CIA. He will now be the DNI.
No, Trump names John Radcliffe as the CIA director. I think it's the other way around.
The DNI is the DCI is subordinate to the DNI.
Yeah, I got you there. I just want to. So Radcliffe, an attorney, served as director of national intelligence during the first Trump term. So now he's going to the CIA. Maybe he got enough. He got his chops at the DNI. Trump's decided fixing the CIA is more important.
Yeah, his competency's never been an issue. He's a legit intel guy. So that's good. So.
Let's see. I'll read the announcement here. If I'll start with the announcement from Trump, and then we'll go from there.
It's better than Gina Haspel.
Don't get me started, brother. Statement from President Donald J. Trump. I am pleased to announce the former Director of National Intelligence, John Radcliffe, will serve as the Director of Central Intelligence Agency. From exposed fake Russian collusion to be a Clinton campaign operation to catching the FBI's abuse of civil liberties at the FISA court, John Radcliffe has always been a warrior for truth and honesty with the American public. When 51 intelligence officials were lying about Hunter Biden's laptop, there was one, John Radcliffe, telling the truth to the American people. For these and many other reasons, it was my great honor in 2020 to award John the National Security Medal, the nation's highest honor for distinguished achievement in the field of intelligence and national security. I look forward to John being the first person ever to serve in both the nation's highest intelligence positions. He will be a fearless fighter for the constitutional rights of all Americans while ensuring the highest levels of national security at peace through strength. And so he gives a bio here. Guys, I hope he guts the CIA.
So isn't an intelligence star a higher award? But I guess that those are classified, and you only get them for work in the field. So
I think you only get those. Aren't the intelligence stars the ones that they give to people posthumously?
Well, no, those are the stars on the wall. But there is an award called the Intelligence Star that you get, and the citation is always classified. And I know people who have one, so they're not always posthumous. So.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not up on my Intel awards. Here's the thing. If for my money, take the CIA from like 1982 and then take that structure and drop it on the current CIA, and you probably have something close to what the CIA should be.
Yeah, I'm all about selling arms to the Nicaraguan resistance. Let's do it.
I'm not talking about the actions of the 1982 CIA. I'm talking about the size. The size is what I'm talking about.
The 1982 CIA also gave us Al-Qaeda, so they helped that nice young man Osama bin Laden set up his people. So
yes, all things that have nothing to do with the size of the CIA at the time. The problem is that
you wouldn't dare impugn those brave Mujahideen fighters, would you? Come on.
Well, the enemy of our enemy is our friend, right, Joe?
No, he's still your enemy. But yes, I get it. It's the most misguided piece of advice from history ever. No, he's still your enemy.
you know, the thing for me is that the CIA has been turned into this agency of analysts that has some, you know, people who used to be involved in doing actual hard things.
Well, the only people who do hard things there anymore are the contractors, right? Folks brought in from the outside to work in the special activities division. Guys like our friend Kay and some of the others.
Yeah.
That talent has been outsourced, and they need to think that through to its logical conclusion. That might not have been a wise choice in the long run. So, because those guys are now all on our side and not working for the government anymore.
Yeah. Can you guys hear whistling in the background?
Yes, that is the interaction between Joe. Like whenever Joe hits the accelerator, you'll hear a slight whistle.
That's what that is.
And I hit the accelerator a lot.
The funny thing is, it's only coming in my left ear cup. Like when I just pulled it off, I couldn't hear it anymore. But
yeah,
when I put it back,
I can get into why it is, but it's the interplay between the electronic system in Joe's car and the broadcasting system.
Yeah, that's weird.
Look,
that's so strange.
In my defense, I'm trying to get away from Omaha, Nebraska, as fast as I can.
Run.
That's fair. Anyway, this is unlike the Pete Hegseth. You know, I don't think there will be any controversy on this. I don't think he'll have any trouble getting nominated. He's clearly operated at a higher level, the DNI job. So it's kind of a no-brainer for him to make it in here. Anything else further? Anything you guys would like to see out of the CIA over this next little bit of time?
I'd like him to publicly acknowledge Gina Haspel's contribution, because according to the Q people, she was shot leading the raid with Delta Force to recover the servers from the German government after the election that put Donald Trump back in office. So, no, but in all seriousness,
what?
In all seriousness, I'd like to see some more real appointments like this of actual no nonsense people. Getting us back into what we used to be really good at.
Yeah, I mean, the more I see of this stuff, the more I think that that not winning the election in 2020 is going to end up being kind of a secret blessing that none of us. It's the blessing that none of us wanted, but now we can see it maybe in hindsight.
Well, don't say that. Those people will all say, "See, it was the plan all along, and you didn't trust it."
Well, I mean, I don't believe in predestination, but at the same time, I do believe in that God works in strange and mysterious ways. All right, that's not the plan I think the Q people are talking about, though. Watcher, final thoughts? Just on the CIA bit.
We don't need a CIA.
All right, fair enough. All right. The next one, of course, is Sex State. Now, my understanding is there hasn't been an official announcement on this. So this is rumor heavy, but at the same time, I think that this is the kind of rumor that will probably turn into an announcement. Now, that being said, there may be some backroom stuff happening here that may change this. What was it? The Rogers or somebody like that was supposed to be a shoe-in. Grinnell and Rogers were bandied about as a potential SecDef or a Tulsi Gabbard, right? If Tulsi had been named, it wouldn't have surprised me nearly as much as Pete. But I'll be honest with you, I'm way happier for Pete to do it than Tulsi. So the Sex State thing is still soft, I think. But I could see, with as big a supporter as Rubio's been of Trump in the last 4 years, I think that it's not the craziest thing that could happen. Just before I jump into this, guys, any initial thoughts on this? Marco Rubio.
Yes, Rubio is an awful choice. I can't believe he made it. My only consolation is Trump seems to go through cabinet appointments faster than some people go through underwear. So
the interesting thing is this one and Elise Stefanik, the UN ambassador and Secretary of State. If you were going to have a war hawk at either place, those two would be the ones. Because they can't actually start a war, right? Now they may talk tough, right? But ultimately, maybe who knows? Maybe that's what we need at Sec State. At this point, I'm trying to
well, then
figure
you
out
had
what
a
the
lot
hell.
better options than Rubio.
I agree with that. I just don't want neocons, right? And so there are some people who say that Rubio is kind of like neocon light. I tend to put him in the neocon category. I mean, what's your take on that, guys?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
All right, I was gone for some reason. I'm going to disagree with you, Scott. A sex state can start a war. In 1949, Dean Acheson gave a speech where he listed the countries that the United States government was willing to go to war for. And he failed to mention South Korea. And 6 months later, North Korea crossed the line.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good point.
Dean Acheson caused the Korean War. So I think that the appointment of Elise Stefanik to the absolute nothing position of UN ambassador actually saves him from the trouble she has caused. She is actually a behind-the-scenes never-Trumper. She's stood in this way many, many times. This conveniently puts her out of harm's way and moves her from anywhere where she can cause more damage.
Whoa, hold on a second, guys. Wrench Turner 42 in our chat's telling us to be quiet and read his comment here. Wrench Turner for 42 for $20. That is not cheap. Thank you very much for the support. Just some Grift. Thank you guys for what you do. Also, thanks for the people supporting CFC to get good content and keep these guys in the know. Also, training is still a thing. Even without the election results, don't stop. Yeah, 100% on that. I mean, now is not the time to let off the pedal when it comes to preparedness. Ultimately, Joe, this is the time to take. This is kind of like the whole make hay while the sun is out type situation, right?
Well, and I'm not even going to go that far. I'm going to say that, look, until the man is seated in that chair, do not let your guard down.
Amen.
There is skullduggery afoot. Let's wait and see what happens. Things are going to get worse before they get better. The left has been gaining steam for the last 3 or 4 days. Let's see what the protest situation looks like in a month. So,
yeah, it's a good point.
Yes, train.
Watcher, you've been taking advantage of some of the negative news to get some stuff done. Let's say we get to inauguration and we don't have a civil war happening and we don't have a major war with China going on. How are you going to how is that let's call that good news, right? How are you going to reorder your kind of priorities for what you're doing with that good news?
I mean, at a certain point, eventually, you come out of survival mode and you go into money-making mode. Because let's be honest, at the moment, I'm still very much, I want to be very cautious. I want to make sure that we're all protected and we don't expose ourselves to risks that we don't need to be exposing ourselves to at the moment. But here pretty soon, if things stabilize, I think me and a lot of other people that think the same way, eventually, you don't come away from a readiness posture, but you also go, it's time to make some money while time to make hay while the sun shines, right?
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right.
Scott, you raised an interesting point just a minute ago. You said barring a conflict with China. Pete said some very pointed things about China in the Sean Ryan interview.
Yes. Yeah, he did.
Which are worth noting. And if you're Chinese, they're worth noting. He said that China is preparing to defeat the United States military, and that's their only goal. and you got a guy saying he's going to return the warrior to the warfighting ability. If you're China, the time to strike is now before that happens.
Yeah.
So be thinking about that.
Yeah, that's a really
And
good
honestly,
point.
We have been thinking
Go ahead.
about it a lot. I mean, I've been thinking about it a lot lately, and we've stated it a few times here. And I'm sorry, I think people expect me to be the one who says, "Oh, we have to defend Taiwan." I'm the one who's been saying for a very long time that Taiwan doesn't even want to defend Taiwan, and until at least Taiwan wants to defend Taiwan, I don't give two shits about it.
Now, in fairness, one of the stories that I considered throwing in the odds and ends today that I didn't was the news of a $15 billion arms sale to Taiwan, and Taiwan it looks like they are tooling up.
And they actually started honoring their commitments as far as sanctions, and they stopped selling semiconductors to China.
China. And now
that's
we
important.
recently had to kind of like remind them of some of that, evidently.
It's also very easy for us to point the fingers at them and say, see, look, they don't want to defend themselves, right up until blood is spilled. The minute the first Taiwanese citizen is killed on a beach by the Chinese naval infantry coming ashore, that attitude may very well change. So
yeah.
It's different when the blood is flowing. I'll be right back, guys. So
okay. All right, Watcher, let us. Where are we at? 6. Okay, I think it's time to talk about DOGE and government accountability and.
Were we wanting to head over to Rumble for that, or?
Nah, okay. I mean, I'm good with let YouTube do what they do, right?
Yep.
We got 179 folks watching over on Rumble, and where are we at on YouTube? We're right at 103 YouTubers, so a little over 250 folks watching, 275 or so. So thank you guys all for being here today. Let me catch up. I got a couple other super chats and other things. So let's see, in no certain order. Lance Corporal Veteran for $2. Insider meetings being held to disrupt Trump's term. Yeah. So evidently there were some reports of some leaders within the Pentagon trying to figure out ways to protect the organization from the wrecking ball. I'll be honest with you. I think the wrecking ball will win. I'm not too worried about. I think, what is it? Section F or Schedule F or something like that is a federal hiring regulation that will allow them not only to fire political appointees, but also pretty much any federal employee based on content.
Yeah, and like I know that they've tried to make a bunch of procedural and legislative barriers to being able to fire federal employees who so rightly deserve to be fired and potentially prosecuted. However, the funny thing about sweeping all three branches is they could pass a law stripping that tomorrow.
Yeah. Lost Core 23 for $10 over in the Rumble chat says, since I'm back a bit, you guys talked the VA. Gentle reminder that they played with metrics and killed veterans because it would make them look bad. Yeah, that's
correct.
Yeah, that's some kind of dirty pool that was going on. Let me.
Hold on. I got a bot. I gotta go take down.
I got him. Talking about Rumble.
Yeah.
All right. Next over here, we got Peter Chase helicopters for $2. At what point will courts ignore or at what point will courts be ignored or judges? I assume courts or judges be ignored. Yeah, he's going back to the whole Maloney kind of Italy thing. Yeah, the problem is that when you have liberal institutions in your country that are willing to give way to foreign bodies, then you automatically lose your sovereignty. You have to take control of your country and your sovereignty back. And in the case of the UK, they did the Brexit. and they essentially wrested sovereignty back from the UK. I mean, from the EU back to the UK. But what did they do as soon as they did? The Liberals started destroying their country at the most rapid pace possible.
Yeah, in retribution. Now, look, the unfortunate fact is that the European mind cannot comprehend the phrase, now let them enforce it.
Yeah.
Well,
let's see.
And you mentioned Brexit. Brexit showed the actual death of Western democracy, because they had a vote and then they lost. Like, oh, okay, all right, best 2 out of 3, and then they lost again. Like, all right, best 4 out of 5. You know, it was just like, it was proof that Western democracy was on the decline, and that authority had been ceded to a multinational body.
Yeah. Philip Coggins, member for 26 months, says the VA really sucks when you can't declare certain things. When, as an FAA rated commercial pilot, it would cause me to lose my medical. That's really interesting.
Funnily enough, I know multiple people who are in that situation where they cannot fully admit to things that are wrong with them, because in order to have the employment that they currently have, they cannot admit that that thing is wrong with them, and therefore they cannot seek treatment for it.
All right. Stormy just forces me to read these things. Stormy for $5 says, please keep telling us about the soft sex tape, Scott. Laughing my fucking ass off. I think she was. I saw her in the chat referring to me saying the sex state, and she was trying to imply that I was saying the sex state, which is funny, but
maybe it was a sex tape from something. You never know.
Yeah. But she is right here. She is right here. Please like on both platforms if you are switching over. No, we are not switching over, but please like on both platforms. We're gonna let YouTube enjoy this content that we'll put out there. All right, I think we're caught up on super chats. Let's jump into the Doge conversations, gentlemen.
Hold on, I do have to say that as far as an idea for how to thin out federal bureaucracy workers, this is actually a pretty decent one.
Yeah, that will. Yeah, the forces it comes 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. 5 days a week. That will then 20% to start. Move agencies to Iowa and Alabama. So Space Force, I think, will absolutely go to Huntsville, Alabama on week 1 of the Trump administration. That was something that was originally put together, and then Biden, totally killed that. And then after he said that they were going to build the headquarters in Colorado Springs, the Senate and I guess people in the Senate and the Congress zeroed out all the money for the Space Force headquarters. So now that Trump's back in, they all want to move them down. So it'll.
Well, that only makes sense. Like when Trump moved the Department of Agriculture to Topeka, it didn't make any sense for agriculture to be in Washington, D.C., where there's not a farmer for 600 miles, right? Put them in Topeka where the farmers are.
The only problem is, the only problem is that I just don't want them to be any closer to Monsanto.
Facts.
So as long as they're closer to farmers and not to Monsanto, I'm good. All right.
Of course, by this logic, the FDA would have to be moved to China. So
right. Where the drugs come from. Well, that's where the diseases come from for sure. Maybe we could send the National Institute of Health to China. Or Taiwan, maybe. Yeah, we'll put them in Taiwan.
Base the DEA out of the Mexico City embassy.
Gentlemen, I think you're missing it. I think the DEA needs to be based off of Kinmen Island. That's
well, I was going to say the DEA needs to be based out of Medellin, but Yeah, maybe that's old school DEA, not the new school. All right, let's jump into the Doge conversation because this is a lot of fun stuff. I'll be honest with you. So this was not what I was expecting. Like Sec State, Sec Def, these are those early appointments that I was, expecting. But this one today with the announcement of Doge, absolutely was not one I was expecting. Let me find the one. Do we have? Where is the actual announcement? I think this is it, isn't it?
Well, can I start by pointing out the absolute irony of creating a department that's designed to reduce government inefficiency by creating an entirely new government department?
Well, the irony is this is the first government department created. Well, first of all, I don't think it's a department. I think it's really just a blue ribbon panel, like the 9/11 Commission or whatever. But ultimately, it has a no later than date. Their work will conclude no later than July 4th, 2020.
It's 18 months. It's 18 months is all they have, which, I mean, even to make recommendations, that is a fairly short time period. Although what I love is that apparently they're going to crowdsource a lot of this. So you out there in the chat, if you have some excellent glaring examples of government waste, fraud, and abuse, now's your chance, baby.
I'm waiting for the government-based renaming committee. That's what I'm looking for. Make Fort Bragg again.
I'm not saying much about that, for reasons, Joe, but I can make hand gestures about other things. All right. Nice. Now, this is a statement from President Donald J. Trump. I am pleased to announce that I love it that he puts he capitalizes great. That the great Elon Musk,
Isn't that supposed to be Elon the Great? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Elon the Great Musk. Yeah, I could totally hear him saying that, though. Working in conjunction with American Patriot, also capitalized American Patriot, Vivek Ramaswamy, will lead the Department of Government Efficiency. By the way, that's what DOGE stands for. Together, these two wonderful Americans will pave the way for my administration to dismantle government bureaucracy / excess regulations, cut wasteful expenditures.
Ironically, neither of them is a natural-born American.
Yeah, fair, right? They can't be president, but they can absolutely lay waste to the federal government. Let's see. Restructure federal agencies and essential to save America movement. This will send shockwaves through the system and anyone involved in government waste, which is a lot of people, stated Mr. Musk. Let's see. It will become potentially the Manhattan Project of our times. Republican politicians have dreamed about the objectives of DOGE for a long time. To drive this kind of drastic change, the Department of Government Efficiency will provide advice and guidance from outside the government and will partner with the White House, the Office of Management and Budget, and drive large-scale structural reform and create an entrepreneurial approach to government never seen before. I look forward to Elon and Vivek making changes to the federal bureaucracy with an eye on efficiency and at the same time making life better for all Americans. Importantly, we will drive out the massive waste and fraud that exists throughout our annual $6.5 trillion of government spending. They will work together to liberate our economy and make the U.S. government accountable to we, the people. Their work will conclude no later than July 4th, 2026. A smaller government with more efficiency and less bureaucracy will be the perfect gift to America on the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. I'm confident they will succeed. I have no idea what this is going to look like. I have no idea. But I am very confident that this is going to be something that will absolutely drive the neo-Marxist absolutely crazy.
Well, yeah, I think that's a big thing. I'm going to watch for some protests on that. Before the fact checkers all jump in, I'm not sure. I think Vivek Ramaswamy actually is natural born, but I just thought it was funny. But on the side note to that, I like his reference to July 4th. That's actually kind of an important thing and a neat thing. But the federal government, like all living, breathing organizations, exists to perpetuate itself. It's going to fight this tooth and nail. So I'd be careful. There was another president back in time who felt we should reduce the federal bureaucracy, and they killed him. So, but the one thing that struck me is this will be the Manhattan Project of our time. I don't think that's the first time Donald Trump has said that, and the last time it was not a good thing. So,
I also want to point out that my favorite thing about the original Manhattan Project was the way they announced it beforehand. That's you know. Oh wait.
Well, in honesty, this is not a secret project. It is a public project, and we're going to get into some stuff because I've got some tweets and whatnot from both Vivek and Elon that kind of go to some of the stuff on this. But if you go back to if you can go back to that tweet, share the screen again. I just want to literally. I think the meme that just kind of says everything about this is right beneath this tweet. I think it's Brick Suits, not that one. Let's see, that one right there. What exactly do you do here? I have people skills. I mean,
first of all, if we're going to quote the movie, we need to do it correctly. It is, what would you say you do here?
Exactly.
But the other part is this is a very cagey move by Donald Trump because just like with Elise Stefanik, it parks Vivek Ramaswamy somewhere outside. It does keep a guy you're not 100% sure of at arm's length. And make him feel like he's buddy with you, right? He's made it so he doesn't have to appoint him somewhere else where he can do actual damage.
You know, one thing that's interesting here, Joe, is I think that this may give Vivek an opportunity to show his kind of bona fides to the conservative movement that he can actually deliver.
Not really, because all he's doing is making recommendations. Whether they get accepted or not is not up to him. So it will seem that way, and he can say, "Look at what all I did on this," but they don't really have any authority or any teeth. It is just an advisory panel.
Yeah. All right.
I just have to say before we move on, as a man of memes, never in my wildest dreams did I imagine that as a young teenager watching homestarrunner.com, hearing the word Doge being used to describe a dog for the first time, that this is where it would end up. It's one of those crazy logic chains that if you actually follow the word becomes insane. And I love it.
Yeah, I mean, if you go I like Elon's one of his first tweets about this after it comes out. He of course says, where is it? I'm sorry. Yeah, and the merch is going to be fire.
and let me once again be the killjoy and say, as funny as all that is, we should not be running our government for the meme, right?
Well, the one thing that I will say that he did, I'm trying to find it because I did.
Look, I'm hoping that they propose that they fund this entire project via merch sales because I'd donate.
Well, merch sales, and I think with external funding, right? Like, so that way the government doesn't have to actually pay for this, which would be actual government.
So you want to offer up government services to the highest bidder? Interesting.
No, I'm saying that I would be okay if Elon said he wanted to write a check to pay for all this. I would be okay with that.
Yeah.
I mean, so for instance, this is a tweet from Vivek that Elon reposted. He says, DOGE will soon begin crowdsourcing examples of government waste, fraud, and abuse. Americans voted for drastic government reform, and they deserve to be part of fixing it. And I'm looking for the tweet where Elon actually said that they're going to make all this public, like everything that.
He said that every action.
He said everything will be posted on Twitter because it should be transparent as fair as possible. Yeah, he said.
Yeah, he says. Here's the quote right here. We're going to be very open and transparent and very clear about this. Is what we're doing with Doge. Here are the issues. This is the math of what's being spent. We're going to make the spending lower, and if somebody's got a better idea for how to make the spending lower, tell us. If we don't, we're going to bankrupt the country, and so we've got to do something, and it's got to be pretty big moves. And he says, "I drain the swamps. There are so many swamps." And so I like all of this. This is kind of like, it's kind of like when Vivek first came out and started saying things that I like to hear, right? I'm ultimately a show me guy, right? I will trust you until you fuck us, but ultimately don't fuck us. But if you can deliver the goods, then the trust will go to the next level.
Speaking of delivering the goods, how'd Drain the Swamp go?
Yeah, hey, fair, right? But then again, let's be honest. We can all say that I don't think it was for a lack of trying. It was for a lack of knowing how. If you don't know how to use a shovel, you're not going to dig a very deep hole, right?
Well,
that being
he
said,
we're going to drain the swamp by hiring all the swamp creatures to help me drain the swamp.
Well, right,
and it worked out exactly as one might think.
I feel like Trump didn't know what the swamp was, really. I mean, I think he understood the idea of it, but in reality, he didn't realize the people that were standing around him, kind of chanting "drain the swamp" with him, were actual swamp creatures.
I was going to say the gators are looking fat and happy this time of year. But speaking of ways to get rid of them, Vivek's got some ideas. On day one, instantly fire 50% of federal bureaucrats. Yeah. Here's how. If your social security number ends in an odd number, bye-bye.
You're fired. Yeah. I thought this was interesting because this gets around all the ideas of like, well, you can't say they fired me out of discriminatory reasons or whatever. It was, and because it's a mass, it's a mass firing. It doesn't violate civil servant rules. And so there's a video of him talking about this in a little more detail on the next link. So let's go ahead and play that.
Give me just a second. Gotta make it look nice. Bam, good to go. Oh no, hold on. Volume. And good.
And here's why. Historically in Japan, and I should say in Japan, this is changing now. It's changing now. But historically, until very recently, and even to an extent now, it's near impossible to fire people. So if somebody works for you and you can't fire them, that means they don't actually work for you. It means in some deeper perverse sense, you work for them because you're responsible for what they do without any authority to actually change it. So I think most people who have traveled in Japan and Japanese corporate culture through the 1990s and 2000s and 2010s, and maybe even some vestiges in the 2020s, wouldn't really dispute what I just told you. Now, we're bringing back to the more contentious terrain. I think that's basically how things have worked in the executive branch of the federal government of the United States of America. You have these so-called civil service protections on the books. Now, if you really read them carefully, I think that there are areas to provide daylight for a truly constitutionally well-trained president to act. But apart from those, that's a contrarian view that I have that bucks conventional wisdom. But apart from that caveat, in general, the conventional view has been the U.S. president can't fire these people. There's 4 million federal bureaucrats, 99.9% of them can't be touched by the person who the people who elected to run the executive branch can't even fire those people. It's like the equivalent of that Japanese CEO.
Yeah. The whole point
Here's
with
why.
this entrench. What's that? Oh, that was the video.
Yeah, it started playing again.
Case in point is, hey, generals, go ahead and withdraw from Syria. No, and all those generals are still employed today.
Well, it's funny you would mention that, Joe.
The crazy thing about that, Joe, is they never said no. They said okay. To his face, but then just never did it. And evidently, when he asked for some, progress reports on that, they said, "Well, we're working on it. we're staffing it. We're staffing those orders, and they basically just buried it, and
And now they will get their just desserts.
Yeah. So this is really, really spicy, and I don't even know. Real quick before we talk about this, there were a couple funny things about the whole Doge thing that I wanted to bring up because they were just, Doge is there's too much fun in that. I want to enjoy it a little bit. So these are just two little things that I found on here. It's one of those kind of things. It's good to laugh about this kind of stuff because if you didn't laugh, you'd start crying. This here is Elon watching federal employees enter the private sector.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. Being in the federal in the federal government, it's like I can understand what that's all about. And then there was another one here. This is one of those AI things, but this is funny. This kind of relates to Doge and Elon and all that kind of stuff. So of course you've got your Elon School for Total Powerhouses.
Hey, Wills, what is this place?
It's a school for remarkable misfits, not unlike yourself, Donny J. Here, we turn the autistic into leaders, patriots, and heroes.
You had that autistic lead the way, professor?
We gather the best and brightest from around the world to combat the forces of darkness.
Let me get a roll call already. You delightful cripple.
Take out his powers identifying globalists.
That's a globalist.
Well done.
God damn. God damn it.
Impressive. Show me more, you low-altitude genius.
This is Josie. She's a constitutional scholar who isn't afraid to call people retards. Very promising.
I don't find that uninspiring.
Totally. Then there's Joshua. He's a future senator who currently teaches counter-propaganda. His colleague Poso is impressive as well.
1-800-leaders.com? My goodness.
I'm just getting warmed up, Donny J.
Yeah, I don't know who some of these people are, but Clown World, of course, is funny. Cultural Critics is pretty good. These are all X accounts if you're not following them. I think I'm following all of them, actually.
Scott Adams, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, I'm good. I'm good though with this.
It's
so funny.
That's pretty good. Although I believe there's a certain four-legged furry non-corporeal member that could have got a mention. Just saying. As long as we're memeing it up, remember Peanut Kids.
Yeah, who knows? They could have been one of the ones that I didn't list here. All right, let's jump right into Watcher. I'm gonna take a break. I'm gonna let you read this next thing.
I'm excited.
Feel free, both the two of you, feel free to comment while I step away for a.
Trump Warrior Board would purge woke generals from the U.S. military leadership. Before we go any further, let me just give a little hoorah. After years of feminizing the U.S. military through DEI initiatives, a new executive order under consideration by Trump's transition team would establish a warrior board of retired senior military personnel, which would be granted the power to review 3- and 4-star officers and recommend any removal of those deemed unfit for leadership, i.e., 99% of them. A draft review of the executive order seen by the Wall Street Journal could fast-track generals and admirals found to be lacking in requisite leadership qualities, giving President-elect Donald Trump's past vow to fire woke generals who have promoted diversity among the ranks at the expense of military readiness. As the commander-in-chief, Trump can fire any officer at will, but an outside board whose members he appoints would bypass the Pentagon's regular promotion system, signaling across the military that he intends to purge a number of generals and admirals. I just have to say, Let it never be forgotten that this was an issue long before wokeness existed. Wokeness is merely the new adaptive camouflage these individuals have chosen to try and protect themselves from attempts to hold them accountable under color of law. I think it needs to go further. I really do. It needs to be more than just, oh, did you promote DEI? I mean, that's a great start. It's an amazing initial litmus test. But let's just say, for instance, somebody was involved with greenlighting the decision to the decisions, we'll just say, that led to what happened at Abbey Gate, but hasn't promoted DEI. You should also be out on your ear. No pension.
Subordinate to its civilian leadership yet again. That's the way it's always supposed to have been. The Syria pullout's the one thing that I will always point out. They were told to do it. They lied about it. They didn't do it. And then General Milley got on the phone and told China, hey, don't worry. If he wants to attack you, I'm going to let y'all know. He should have been hanging by a rope the moment he made that admission. There's no other
treason.
No other punishment works for that, right? To discourage anyone else from doing that, you hang them from a rope, and that puts an end to that. If a more junior person had said or done that, that's what would have happened to him. So I welcome this, but we have to be careful that it doesn't become a thing of vindictiveness, but it is actually out there for true military effectiveness.
People are asking, did we not have gluts of officers in the past? Yes, never to this degree, though. Like, look, I saw a figure the other day that I think we have, Joe can correct me here, but I think we have almost one officer for every, 10 enlisted men. That's utterly insane. It is utterly insane.
We have a ridiculous number of general officers. And I guess not just, let me say flag rank, because it's not just general officers. There's a lot of admirals, right? Including our good friend Admiral Levine of the Public Health Service. Good old Dickie Levin out there. Anyway, they need to be held accountable. They need to be downsized and explain that who actually is the boss here. Needs to happen 100%. But probably one of the most famous cases historically of a general officer that a president was afraid to fire was Douglas MacArthur. He was so wildly popular, yet completely disregarded what he was told to do on a regular basis. And the weird thing is that during the Korean War, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff was actually subordinate to MacArthur, but it still made it work. So crazy.
Oh, it's exceedingly crazy. I'll tell you, the other thing is I hope they don't go after a few token individuals and then just kind of disappear. I really hope that this is an honest to God chance for America to reform its military leadership, which has been in desperate need of reform, in my opinion, since at least the Korean War.
And they also need to stop what's called the waiver process, which is how Lloyd Austin became a member of the Boeing board on 3 days after his retirement, right? Don't give waivers to these generals to immediately go to work in the defense industry. It's not supposed to work that way. What they end up doing is spending the last 5 years of their career, rather than serving the interests of the American people, they're trying to line up that next job with Boeing or McDonnell Douglas or General Dynamics or any of the others, right? BAE, which technically is an agent of a foreign government, but making sure that they're not able to get waivers to immediately enter the private sector at a defense contractor.
So let me play this clip real quick.
Milley was a stupid person, very stupid. But we have great generals, but Milley was stupid. Guys like John Kelly are he's one of the dumbest people I've ever met. A bully, but a weak bully. And we just have some stupid people. Kelly wasn't so involved in that, but we have some really stupid people at the top.
Facts. When the promotion standards are how many people did you fuck over to get where you are so that your record is clean, but theirs is not? Expect shenanigans.
I think that one of the biggest examples of this is the commanding general of Southcom. That woman is a literal moron. She showed up to me with a head of state in camis, right? And it's absolutely ludicrous. It's dumb. So
all right,
you can't try to invoke the woke agenda on our partners in Latin America because they're heavily Catholic and far more conservative than we are socially. And she's trying to use her role as the commanding general of Southcom to implement like international policy. It's just absolutely silly.
Well, as long as we're on silly things that generals have done, I believe that everybody who was involved in the Afghanistan war, who chose it as an opportunity to try and reform Afghanistan and this whole, what was that goddamn book that made it around the entire officer corps, 2 Cups of Tea or whatever the hell it was. If that has ever been on one of your reading lists, you're gone. Like gone fucking tomorrow. We are here to fight wars. We're not here to culturally reform the rest of the world. That is not what the U.S. military was ever intended to do. It's not what it's equipped to do. It's not what it's trained to do. It's not its purpose.
Agreed.
All right. Well, with that, let me put up the
I'm sorry, I'm back. What did I miss, guys? What were you talking about?
Oh, nothing important.
Nothing at all. We're just now about to talk about our final topic there, the Senate Majority Leadership contest.
Yeah, the Senate Majority. That's so this is interesting, right? And so I've been kind of thumbing through X this morning, and evidently things have changed in the race for the when Donald Trump comes out there and makes his preferences clear. And then what is it? 99% of the people who are active conservatives on X say, listen, if Rick Scott isn't it, we go to war type thing. All of a sudden, you have people like Ted Cruz, who was not originally supporting Rick Scott, coming out and say, I support Rick Scott. And when Ted Cruz does that, then there's at least 3 or 4 other senators that will say, yes, I support Rick Scott as well.
So this is proof that the swamp is going to fight back. This is the opening move of the second coup against Donald Trump right here, right?
Yeah.
Technically, traditionally, a speaker would wait. I mean, not speaker, a Senate Majority Leader would wait until the new senators are seated the first week in January before holding this vote. The fact that he's trying to rush it through before that occurs proves that he's trying to upset Trump.
Yeah, Mitch McConnell is absolutely not Trump's friend.
Well, and the other side of this is you can tell because there's now been a pressure campaign waged against the fact they decided to make this vote secret. And so now all the people who are coming out that were publicly in support of Thune are complaining that they're bullying us.
So this is anyway. I just wanted to say that I thought this was interesting as far as let me kind of dig into this because this story is from yesterday, but there have been updates within the last couple hours. This morning on X. So let's see where we were yesterday versus where we are today. Candidates for Senate Majority Leaders have said that they will honor President-elect Donald Trump's request to make appointments when the Senate is in recess. So the idea here is that recess appointments will allow people to enter in positions without a formal, Senate approval. This is something they can get to work immediately versus ahead of the Senate leadership election on November 13th. Senator John Thune, was the election yesterday? No, it wasn't. It wasn't. November 13th? When is the election? I thought it was the 15th.
No, it was the 5th.
December 5th?
No, it's today. This is this one.
It's the 14th. It's the 14th, right?
Oh, it's tomorrow. Okay. I thought it was today.
Well, today is the 14th.
The Senate leadership election.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Guys, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
it just turned. It's after midnight here, so I'm on the 14th now, and you guys are still on the 13th. All right, sorry. I knew that something was confusing me there. On November 13th, this is Thune, Cornyn, and Scott have said that they would support recess appointments. Any Republican senator seeking the coveted leadership position in the United States Senate must agree to recess appointments in the Senate. This is something that Trump said on X. And then Rick Scott said, I 100% agree. I will do whatever it takes to get your nominations through as quickly as possible. Thune said on X, we will act quickly and decisively to get the president's nominees in place as soon as possible, and all options are on the table to make that happen, including recess appointments. We cannot.
So here's what's funny is you're about to hear the mainstream media rail against recess appointments as a tool of authoritarianism, even though they applaud it when Democrats do it. Barack Obama was well known for the recess appointment. He was also well known for creating the czar position, which went around Senate confirmation. So,
yeah, it's funny that rules for thee, but not for me, right, Joe?
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost like they live by that. Let's see. We cannot let Schumer and the Senate Dems block the will of the American people. And then Cornyn wrote, it is unacceptable for Senate Democrats to block President Trump's real cabinet appointments. If they do, we will stay in session, including weekends, until they relent. Additionally, the Constitution expressly confers the power of the president to make recess appointments. These are all good points. I felt that Thune had the lead coming into this secret election, and followed by Cornyn, and then Rick Scott. But I'll be honest with you, I think there's a shot that Rick Scott wins this thing. With as much public support as we've seen, and all of these official documents that have been leaked, they've tried to say, "Oh, well, these appear to be official documents," but this is a behind. There's no way to verify that. Bullshit.
Let me say this: as we get ready to pin our hopes on a Senate Majority Leader, let me give you two words: Mike Johnson.
Mike Johnson, yeah. I hope Mike Johnson comes to heel a bit. I have heard that there is a talk of the Congress, actually a conservative uprising against Mike Johnson here in the beginning of this Congress. So I would be
overdue. Well overdue.
I would be rather interesting to see exactly what happens there. Yeah, because Mike Johnson really fucking screwed the pooch. Pardon my French, on a couple of those things. So.
Yeah, when he said, well, I saw a classified briefing that changed my mind. Yeah, the classified briefing was about him. So
yeah.
Well, I mean, not that they have any say over what actually happens, but just know that all the betting markets have Thune by like 63%. So
well, yeah, because that was pretty much where it was, 3 days ago. So it'll be interesting to see what the final result is. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if the turtle was able to make Thune do this. But I think here's the thing: I think Thune and Cornyn are both running a little scared. They don't have the heavy support of the kind of the conservative, uniparty people that they had back in 2016. So it's it's 8 years later. It's a different situation. The conservative movement has absolutely been taken over by the MAGA, movement. So we'll see how things shake out. I'm not hopeful when it comes to these swamp creatures, but what are you going to do?
Well, here's the bottom line on this. While the Constitution enables each house of the legislature to develop its own parliamentary procedures, which is how we got this role, the Senate Majority Leader, let's remember, who is the president of the Senate? The Vice President of the United States. And when push comes to shove, the Vice President can take charge and do what needs to be done in the Senate. So.
All right, guys, that's all I've got. This was the last thing on my list. Anything else that you guys want to cover?
Just that this is more proof that the deep state is active and is going to do the same thing they did before. They're going to lead an insurrection. And yes, I choose that word on purpose against the president. And you're probably about to see, if we make it all the way to January 6th and January 20th without major civil unrest, they're about to make January 6th look like a walk in the park that it actually was. So,
yeah. All right. So real quick, let's do final thoughts, and then we will say good morning to the chat. Joe, final thoughts. Looking towards end of the week. The disruptions have been minimal. I think this is about as good as we could have expected. It makes me, and when it's like this, it always makes me feel like there's another shoe left to drop. Anything that you're seeing on your kind of reports?
Yeah, so we're seeing that while it's not being covered in the mainstream media, traction is being made, ground is being gained in the leftist insurgency actions. So the signs appeared in Atlanta last weekend that said we should all aspire to be terrorists now. There were some protests on Saturday. There were even more on Sunday. So as we roll into this next weekend period, I would expect to see more anti-Trump protests, because here's the truth of the matter. For the far left, the AOCs of the world, the do-rag Raskins of the world, it's time to put up or shut up. You said that the man is an absolute Nazi who's going to put people back in chains. If that was true, you would pick up a rifle and do something about it. So we're about to see whether they're really all about that or not. I would not let off the gas. I would not take a victory lap yet. Let's wait until he's actually in office for that to actually happen.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I just want to back up what Joe said. Take the upswing of the economy, figure out how to make sure your family has the supplies they're going to need for the next little while. Because let's be honest with ourselves, even if we here are totally wrong, or either we're wrong about them trying to take a shot at him, or they're once again unsuccessful, since they seem to be utterly incompetent morons in every aspect of their lives, not just in governing us. Let's say that they are unsuccessful at preventing the man from taking office. We're still very likely to see World War III within the next 2 years. That's it's gonna, like, I don't know what to say, but like all of these other factors didn't go away just because Donald Trump got elected. So
good. Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And let's point out too that a Chinese national has been arrested for the 5th time breaking into Mar-a-Lago. Same guy 5 times, and the judges keep letting him out, and the Secret Service keeps arresting him. You're going to see another attempt on Donald Trump. I mean, that is a given. So, good point, Watcher.
Hey, I've just realized that I've been neglectful on our super chats. We got 2 $10 super chats. Alpha Omega for $10 says he's 100% correct. This is talking about Vivek. Japanese law is very strict and protects workers fiercely. The inability to prove that the dismissal was justified will classify as an abuse of rights and power. This is and this real quick. This is the reason why it is so hard to fire federal employees. Go ahead, Watcher.
No, I don't want to take away from what Alpha and Omega here saying. I did just spot a non-paid comment that needs to be highlighted, and I'd like to make some movement on this real quick. So Alpha Omega, I promise I'll put yours back up. But Rudyard at What a Fault Hiss still predicts at least 1,000 dead in civil conflict in the U.S. by April. Yes, and Rudyard is somebody I would love to have on the show. If anybody out there happens to have connections to Rudyard, I'd love to get him on the council. I think he'd be an excellent guest.
Yeah.
And you know what? I also think that as soon as I get a date, that's going to be the topic of the roundtable with Forward Observer that I'm going to be on. And we really need to be paying attention to that. So,
but Alpha and Omega, you're correct, and unfortunately, none of the shall we say legal framework that they've put up to make it either legally impossible or financially unfeasible because people have nearly unlimited courses of legal action, whether they're justified or not, to try and come after an employee that fired them for what they view as unjust reasons. None of that's gone away, so we're gonna have to figure that one out.
Yeah, Stop Cop City is still active near Atlanta.
Whoever Militant Roots just said he predicts IEDs, and I think that's just an excellent prediction, man.
I think so. I think so.
Random PNW guy 84 over in the Rumble for $10. Need a good George C. Marshall officer purging. World War II enlisted to officer ratio was not a bad start. There was, on the talk of that officer board, there was a board in 1940, and the whole point was to get a lot of the excess general officers that, from the 20s and the 30s, out of the military in order to promote new people. That became a very prescient, prescient move in that case, happening in 1940, right before the war started. Pinochet's helicopter tours for $2 says, where did we get our officers in World War II? They were educated professionals, not career walking bed. So here's the thing, right? And let's be honest. The reason why most of the officers came from career working guys is because we went from an army of like 400,000 to 4 million in 3 years. So, you're going to have guys who start out as lieutenants in 1941 end up being colonels by 1945.
Make the Marine Corps 6 divisions again.
Anyway. Yeah, I'm going to say something that might be semi-unpopular here, but I'm still going to say it. I believe that particularly in a peacetime army, Mustang should be one of the only viable members.
I was going to say that too. Mustang should automatically get 15 preference points in your rating scale, just because of the depth and breadth of knowledge.
I'm just saying,
I know a Mustang officer who ain't bad at it, right?
I don't disagree with you there. Yeah. All right. Guys, that's all I've got. I think I've caught up on all the super chats. Gentlemen, I think there's a lot to happen before we get to the end. I'm really looking forward. With a couple, Rubio, I'm not super excited about Rubio. It's not the end of the world. He's no Rex Tillerson, I guess. But at the same time, I could think of at least 2 or 3 off the top of my head that I would have rather seen in that position. Real quick, guys, name another name that you think would have been a better take than Rubio for 6.
Oh, God. Captain Kangaroo. I'm not kidding you here. This is a terrible
I don't know about that.
My dog, Thor. No, I don't know. I've never been a Marco Rubio fan. But Ted Cruz might have actually been a better pick. In all honesty, although Cruz is going to serve us better where he is.
See, I liked oh God, his name has just slipped my mind. The former DNI Grinnell. I liked Grinnell for this.
I don't want Grinnell anywhere fucking near a second Trump administration. He better not be. That was the dude who flat out called for assassinating somebody who had committed no crime. He goes in the exact same boat as Pompeo, and then that boat gets leveraged out to sea and set on fire.
Grinnell has never been away. He has been a Trump stalwart the entire time for the last 4 years. So, I don't know if you didn't know that or not, but
his objection wasn't Trump related.
I know. I'm just saying, it shouldn't surprise me.
My objection wasn't Trump related. It was related to the actual job he's going to be performing.
All right.
I think, though, that one that we didn't mention today that was disappointing, and I say this at the risk of angering Ron, who may push me off of his mountain next week when I go visit him, is Kristi Noem at DHS. She proved that she could be influenced and swayed with the protecting women in sports thing. So that makes me wonder what's going to happen at DHS.
Yeah.
Hopefully she'll be strong and stick to her guns, but we shall see. We shall see.
Yeah. That's I'm not. I don't know what to think about her. You know. I just I there's a lot that I like about her, but then then I hear things that I don't like. So I don't know. All right, guys, that's all I got for today. If you haven't done it already, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment. Let us know who you want to see. Let us know who you want to see in those positions, and if you disagree with any of them in the comments below the video. Let people know that the Council on Future Conflicts is here and is giving you good information. And on that note, as always, stay safe.